our presentation today, and we are very pleased to welcome Ross McKelvey to our meeting here today. As Ricardo said, Ross is based in Belfast in Northern Ireland. He is a semi-professional studio and portrait photographer when he is not donning his barrister's wig and gown in the local courts. So there's a warning, people, be careful. He might do his barrister's trick on you here now. He is very well known for his carefully created portraits in the studio, and we are delighted to have him here today to join us and to speak about his images and to show us some of his post-processing techniques. People are definitely Ross's preferred subject. He runs studio lighting, fine art workshops from his premises in the city centre of Belfast. And Ross believes that a one light approach often works best, and his lighting style is inspired by classic painters like Rembrandt, for example. As Ricardo said, Ross is a master FIAP, and he gained that distinction in 2019 with a panel of 20 monochrome fine art studio nudes. But Ross also holds the FIAP Platinum distinction. He is fellow of the Irish Photographic Federation. He's a master.
So,
Okay, no
sorry.
problem, Barak. And he's also a fellow of the British Photographic Exhibition Circuits. And he was named #1 in the world for large monochrome prints by the Photographic Society of America in both 2017 and 2018. And if that is not enough, he's also a member of the London Salon of Photography, and they specialize in exhibition photography. So Ross, it's obvious from all of this that you're very well qualified, you're very well distinguished, and from the work that we know of you, that you're very much a people person, and that you have produced some wonderful images in your studio. And we've seen all of these images coming up on your website, in exhibition catalogs, and so on. And I know that in the past, when we didn't have COVID and we could visit each other, that you made presentations under the heading of A Passion for Prints. And I was wondering if you could tell me, before we start the presentation, how important it is for you to produce your images in the printed format.
Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you, Paul. I have donned my barrister's wig.
I see that.
Print for me is, it doesn't really exist as a photograph until it's in the print format. Whenever I process my images, I'm always processing them from the point of view of printing them out. I sincerely hope that the current lockdown does not lead to a proliferation of digital salons as opposed to print. So I'm quite sure that the first exhibition to open up again with prints and an actual display of the prints, etc., will be hugely supported by all the photographic community, because obviously the printed format for me is the pinnacle of photography. It always was photography. The digital PDI section is obviously very new and very popular and very easy, but most of my awards and most of my distinctions have come through the print medium, and I certainly would encourage anybody who's thinking about it to get your own quality printer and produce your own prints, and approach people like myself for advice along the way, and we'll get there.
Thank you very much, Ross. I think there'll be a lot of people on the meeting today who would be able to avail of your advice and would want to do so. So we'll see what happens there. But maybe, Ross, maybe it's time for you to start sharing your screen and we can start looking at some of your images and go through your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I'm extremely flattered by the number of people from around the world who have bothered to tune in for this. So hopefully you're all seeing my screen now. Okay, Paul?
Yes, perfect.
So I have about 100 portraits to show you. They are not in any particular order. They're probably in almost an alphabetical order, apart from the first couple, which are very personal portraits. But so I'll try and whiz through the 100 portraits, and then what I'm going to do is a live edit of an image that is actually not mine. It's been supplied to me by a member of my club. So with his permission, I'm going to edit it live for you. And it does have a few problems with it. So it might be an example to you of why you might not want to delete everything just because it doesn't look right. And we'll be able to show you how in literally 10-15 minutes you can produce an excellent photograph. So the first 50 are being opened. So I'm just going full screen here, and the first picture is of my very good friend David Campbell, the FIAP Board of Directors, many of whom are amongst the audience will have met David whenever they were here in Belfast for the presentation of the World Cup trophy. And David unfortunately had throat cancer at that time, but he passed away in November. So sadly, he's no longer with us. I took this portrait of him in the club the week after Ricardo presented him with the FIAP Medal of Friendship. So I'm delighted to say that I am now the proud holder of the medal. So David's wife gave me the medal. So I'm just holding it up to my webcam there. So that is the FIAP Medal of Friendship that was presented to David by Ricardo. The second one, Freddie van Gilbergen, I'm sure you recognize Paul, because I remember that night in Belfast after the World Cup presentation, you were walking from the Titanic Hotel to the boat for the meal alongside Paul, who was chatting to you. And unfortunately, the sad news is that Paul took his own life during lockdown. A fantastic local photographer. He traveled widely. He was a retired consultant radiologist, and he does, I do presentations now on his photography, which go down very well, but he was an absolutely excellent architectural and street photographer. But again, sadly, no longer with us. So if you are struggling in lockdown, etc., please do reach out to others and seek help. This is a very popular female model that I'm sure a lot of you will have seen in your exhibition catalogues. She's Freda, she's Dutch, and she lives in Canada now. She's married and has a young girl, so I don't think we will be seeing her modeling again, unfortunately. But in this picture, this was quite a popular approach from me in my early days. I used a shawl, a head shawl, to basically frame the face. But with this type of lighting, we're relying very much on the beauty of the model. It's what I call sort of flat lighting. It's frontal lighting. You can see the catch light in the eye is at 12 o'clock. So if the light's above at 12 o'clock, the shadows go down. So you can see the shadow below the nose and the shadow below the chin. So for that picture to be successful, you're basically relying on the muted colors. You have the blue eyes and the blue shawl and a bluish background, and then the sort of orangey yellow hues of the model, but there's no drama in the lighting. Same model, but this one certainly does have drama in the lighting. So this is the typical Rembrandt lighting scenario that I love so much. The light comes in from the side, and this gives you the lit side of the face on the left and the shadow side of the face here on the right. And there's the Rembrandt triangle below the eye on the shadow side. So there's much more drama in the light on this one than there is in the other one. This is Holly. Holly is a UK-based professional female model. She does a lot of art nude, but she also does very, very good, strong portraiture. And it's actually a picture of Holly that I will be editing at the end of the presentation of the actual photographs. So this is Derek, a local guy here in Belfast, and he is a part-time actor. And if you have any friends who take part in stage productions or amateur dramatics, etc., they make great subjects because they're very happy to dress up and to become characters here. But this is actually sort of Derek in his real life. This is actually him, but you're going to see a few portraits of Derek where he is dressed up as characters, etc., which he's very happy to do. But again, we've got the lit side of the face, and then we've got the shadow side of the face. So the lighting adds nice drama. Rochelle, so female portrait, quite muted colours. Rochelle's from the northeast, and very often you'll find that the less colours you have in the picture, the more successful it can be. If you have multicoloured tops and different coloured backgrounds, etc., the colours sort of compete with each other and become very apparent. Whereas with the more muted approach here, it's all about the shape and the beauty of the face. And again, that is the side lighting. And I would turn the head towards the light. So the shadow side of the face is the one that's more open to the camera. This is a local ladies hairdresser in Belfast. So he's very popular with the ladies, but actually he's gay. He is quite a butch guy with his tattoos and his strong beard, etc. He makes an excellent subject for portraiture. And I just wanted to try and get enough of his eye visible there with the hair coming down. We basically soaked his hair, and then he gave a bit of a shake. And again, we had a bit of a color gel on the light, so you can see the shadows are slightly blue. So in the shadow areas, it picks up the blue gelled light. An example, by the way, when you're preparing panels, sometimes you like to flip images. You're thinking, well, if I put that on the left side of a panel or the right side of a panel, it would, be better. And I always remember I flipped one of the pictures of this guy, and I showed it to somebody, and I said, do you not think it's better flipped from left to right? And he said, no, absolutely not. And I said, why not? And he said, well, look at the tattoo. He said, before it was a Latin phrase. He said, now it basically says blub, 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 blub. So whenever you flip a tattoo, you can no longer read it. So be careful of things like that. This is Mishka. Mishka now lives in Norway. She's from Whitby on the northeast coast of England, but I think she's now living with a Norwegian photographer. Beautiful professional model. And this one was inspired by a painting that is on the wall of my mother-in-law's house. And I was quite taken with the painting, and I just simply took a picture of it with my mobile phone, and then thought, yeah, I could try and repeat that with Mishka. So I showed it to Mishka, and we just basically got the same type of profiled side-on headshot. Derek again. Fredo, so again, lit side of the face turned towards the light, and there's the nice shadow of the nose, shadows in here, and there's the Rembrandt triangle. And being a professional model, very, very clever in the way that she poses with such graceful arms, creating these lovely triangles, bringing you up towards the face and the eyes. Pippa. So again, I do love my monochrome portraits, and I love the eye contact in this. Eye contact for me is very often the key to a successful portrait. Yes, you don't have to have eye contact in every portrait, but for me, it allows you to connect with the model in the same way that the camera and I as the photographer have connected with the model. So I think she's giving me a really strong eye contact there, which for me really makes that photograph. A fine pear, P-E-A-R, so called because of the pear shape from the knee to the bottom. This one got me a medal in Edinburgh, and this is the flyer. So the Edinburgh Photographic Society put it on their flyer to advertise the international exhibition. And one of the local newspapers had this write-up on the image. It said, a fine pair, a bodiless pair of legs in fishnet tights by Ross McKelvey from Northern Ireland, is an illusionistic photograph of which even Man Ray would have been envious. So with a write-up like that, if I come to your club and show you that as a print on the back, if you flip it over, I have that printed on the back. And you might notice that is the 153rd exhibition in Edinburgh, and that was in 2015. So we would now be up to the almost 160th international exhibition in Edinburgh. This guy is a professional footballer. He now is, I think, in Dublin, but he was a local professional photographer or footballer. But I spotted him on social media and made contact and brought him into the studio. And again, framing the face with a hood. So eye contact or no eye contact? For me, I much prefer the eye contact, but that is an example for me of a picture that works. If your model is at this angle to the camera, you need to be careful that the edge of the nose does not pass the line of the cheek. This is what's called a 3/4 profile. So the head is turned basically 45 degrees away from the camera, but not too far. If it goes completely sideways, that's a profile, but you, by and large, you should avoid that line of the nose, breaking that line of the cheek. But as I say, I prefer the actual eye contact. This is an example of almost shadowless beauty lighting. So if I zoom in on the eyes, you will see how beautifully sharp that is. And you will also see the clue to the lighting in the eyes. So Catchlight Camera Club, Catchlight Studio, I'm anal about my catchlights. So here we have two large rectangular softboxes angled towards each other. And we've also got the eagle-eyed amongst you will have spotted there's also a weaker reflection or catchlight from a flat white panel that is basically just in front of the model. And my camera appears through this gap in the middle to take the photograph. She was only 17 when I took that photograph and had absolutely perfect skin. So there's very little, if any, retouching done to that. But the absence of shadows, the absence of drama from the lighting would be a very unusual approach from me. But I think for that, elderly ladies will love you if you use that lighting technique, because it will disguise any signs of what phrase will we use, any signs of vintage character.
That's it, Ross. That's a good way of putting it.
Anna Rose is a London-based gymnast stroke professional model, and most of her nudity is implied. So there's nothing on show here apart from obviously her muscle tone, calf muscle, thigh muscle, biceps. And I've basically used dodging and burning techniques basically to bring out the highlights and the shadows on her skin. It's all about the shape. Same model. So that is the same model. So she also gives you great portraits. Now, the skin has been, for me, treated too much in this one. It's too plastic, it's too false, but there was a reason for that. There were big highlights on her skin, and the only way that I could actually deal with them at the time was by going a little too far with the skin softening, but it did not stop that particular print from winning many's a medal. You're always looking for something different to make your sort of portrait stand out, whether it's something like this, just a simple fascinator. So I never knew what a fascinator was until I started doing portrait photography. So this is just something that clips into the hair. And obviously here we've got the addition of a little hairnet. And that just for me adds that little bit of mystery to the portrait. I would watch out for this shoulder if I was taking that one again. I think this shoulder has been sort of pulled in too far. It almost has the appearance of a slight deformity. The fact that the shoulder has been brought in so far there. Fanny Muller, one of my favorite models in the world. And I'm glad to say that I think I'm one of Fanny's favorite photographers in the world. She has been over to Belfast now 5 or 6 times in 2 or 3 years. She was one of the first models to come to me after the first lockdown. But here she is in basically full flight in her ballerina tutu. In the studio, you only get one chance at this. If this was somebody doing the high jump outside, you could put your camera into, rapid fire mode and blast it. But in the studio, you only get one chance to fire the lights. So your timing has to be perfect in order to get that pointed toe, the pointed toe in against the thigh and the pointed fingers, because if you're a split second out, she'd either be on the way up or the way down. Bink. Unfortunately, this lady, she was a professional model, but unfortunately for the last several years, she's had female health problems. She's got endometriosis, which is quite a significant condition, unfortunately, or can be, and certainly in her case, it has been. But I always loved photographing her. And in this case, basically, we've got a sort of, it's not quite a profile. She's almost gone past the profile. But I just love the, with the hair tied back, it's all about the, the female shape there, and the beauty of the face is still apparent. Boo is a French model. I always laugh when I see this picture, because it reminds me, whenever I was photographing her last year, I was asking her, can you move your face more towards the camera? And nothing was happening. And I said, no, I need your face to come around this way, and nothing was happening. And I said, your face? And she looked at me and said, in perfect English, what is face? And I said, your face. And she said, oh, face. So the French model taught me how to speak English, because my Belfast accent saying face was, she didn't understand. So I had to say face. So every time I'm in the studio now and I ask a model to bring their face towards the camera, I thank Boo for improving my English. Connor. So many of the FIAP directors will have met Connor and photographed him actually in my studio. He is a member of Bangor Camera Club in North Down here in Northern Ireland, but he makes an excellent photographic subject, and he's actually very quickly moving up the ranks of local photography. He's doing very well. Anna Rose again, this time with chainmail. This one's called Chainmail Profile, and it's up on the wall in my studio as a large monochrome print. She's from Yorkshire, Andrea. Natasha, yeah, thank you. So this is Natasha Bella, and she's absolutely beautiful. She's 40 something now. She was 44 whenever I took this, and it's several years old. She's a mother of 4 children, and she's still doing art nude photography, and she looks like a teenager. She's actually doing a lot of these remote shoots at the moment. So if anybody's interested in shooting a model remotely, if you look up Natasha Bella, and even Holly Ivory Flame, the model that I'm going to process a picture of, they're all, the ingenuity. They have bought cameras and got backgrounds, and they're using their homes as a studio, and you can operate their camera over the internet. So this is very much a full-on. This is taken with a 100mm macro lens. Now, remember what I said about the nose not breaking the line of the cheek. For me, this is an example of a picture that breaks that rule, but probably I get away with it in this case because it's all about the features. I've zoomed in so much on the features here with backlighting. So for me, it's not often so much about what you like, but what you don't like. So you can see here, we've just got a hint of background light, just catching the edges of the face and the chin, and then the rest of the face is in shadow. The very beautiful Shasta. She is Rwandan, but actually has an American passport as well. So she spends half of her year in LA. So Joanne Stolt there in LA. You can look Shasta up and maybe take some photographs of her, but she also owns a fashion shop in Rwanda under her own label, but she's just an absolute doll, fantastic person to photograph. Derek again, so this is a very different look. For me, this reminds me of Sean Connery. So even whenever I was taking it, I'd said to him, Sean Connery. So he just gave me that little Sean Connery smile. And there he is again with a completely different look. So I've probably gone a little over the top with my processing here, but sometimes there's a very fine line between going far enough to make your picture stand out whenever it's put in front of judges, or not far enough to make it stand out. So I did, you know, a fair bit of dodging and burning there on the face. Oh, sorry, the face. A local model here in Belfast. Well, she's not really a model. She does a little bit of modeling, but it's not her full-time occupation. So this is an example of using gels. So I've got a blue gel over the light coming from the left, and a yellow gel on a backlight. And it was really an experiment on my part to see what it would look like. But I do like the picture, but I haven't really entered that one in competition. So Derek again. Now this is my cap. So I own this cap. So, you know, these guys who are part-time actors, they're very willing to dress up and pose for you. There he is wearing the same cap, but a very different look. He's now put on his leather jacket and he's got his white Motorhead t-shirt on and giving me eye contact, etc. So these guys are brilliant for giving you different looks. Jessica Doherty, local model. Well, when I say local, she's up from Londonderry, Derry, here in the northwest of Northern Ireland. This one was taken just after lockdown. I managed to purchase this garment online and couldn't wait for the you know, to get a model in to wear it. So I think Jessica wore it very well. The lovely Mishka again. So this is all natural light. It's taking in the building where my studio is, so it's upstairs. And basically Mishka is standing at the edge of a window. So another inch to the right-hand side here, and you would see the glass. So my camera is pointed parallel to the glass, and Mishka's face is basically pointed out the window, and you get that beautiful soft light on the face, and then these nice soft shadows. This room is all white, so it's a whitewashed room, and you make sure you don't lose the detail in the whitewashed brick. But again, look how careful I have been in making sure that the edge of the nose does not break the line of the cheek. So the edge of the nose is just inside the line of the cheek there. Ruta is from Lithuania, but the family moved to Northern Ireland maybe about 10 years ago. Ruta is now a mother of twins, but I first started photographing her when she was 17, but this was taken actually Paul Hanley, the guy who took his own life at the very start when I showed you his picture. Paul Hanley was with me whenever we were photographing Ruta here. And I think that, oh, no, I've forgotten his name, I'll move on. Now this is interesting, this is fairly recent, but look at the lighting here. I would love to ask somebody to tell me how many lights would have been involved here, because we've got light on the shoulder, light on the front of the chest, light on the hair, light on the back. So what way do you think that was lit? Always try and decipher from the shadows and the highlights where you think the lighting has come from. It'll probably surprise you when I show you the background picture.
Ross, one of our members has said he thinks there's 3 lights involved.
Well, there you go. There's one. That is straight out of camera. This is a huge 6-foot Octa softbox, and I have put a black panel up in front of the softbox. The model is standing maybe, you know, a few inches forward of the softbox. So that is actually completely untouched raw file straight from camera. So you are looking at the actual big, there's the studio light overhead in my studio. This is a huge 6-foot octa with just simply a big piece of black foam board. So the piece of black foam board becomes the background. And this light wraps around from the back right, from the back left, and from above. And it gives this beautiful quality of light. There's another example. So I then thought I would have to stick the piece of black panel on the front of the softbox using gaffer tape. And look at the quality of light. So it led to that image. Look at the beautiful rim light right around the edge of the model, over her hair, down the side of her face, down the side of her arm, and just a hint of shadow detail on the front of the chest. I think it's a beautiful lighting. I took this one just last week using the exact same technique. So I look forward to seeing your images where all the people will be rushing out to buy. You don't have to have a 6-foot, obviously, softbox, but you could actually do it in front of a window. So if you have a big window, just put up a piece of black foam board to be your background, and your model standing, probably with window light, your model will need to be forward of the black background. Whereas in the studio, with the size of that softbox, I can have them quite close, almost touching the black card. But experiment with it, and it's amazing what you might get with it. So this was taken maybe in, I would guess, September. It was between our local lockdowns here. I had booked Holly to come, and we'd had to cancel her twice. But she finally was able to come for 3 days. So I had 3 days in the studio with Holly, 2 of which were workshops. And as I said, it's one of the images from the workshop from one of my attendees that I'm going to be editing, taken on the same workshop. Now, that big softbox that I showed you, that softbox was used to take this picture, and the edge of the softbox would have been literally just outside of the frame, so it was very close. People sometimes think, oh, it's such a big softbox. If you're close to it, it'll just flood you with light, but actually the reverse is the case, and it's to do with light fall off. So because the model is so close to the light falls off very quickly. And the beautiful drama of the light there is caused by simply having the model very close to the softbox. Gerald. So again, the FIAP directors will recognize Gerald here, because Gerald was in the studio alongside Connor whenever they were taking photographs. And I know that McKelvey, the organizer of the FIAP World Cup, has won medals with one of the pictures that he took of Gerald on that night in the studio before we all went out for a meal. So this was taken, the directors will not have photographs of Gerald quite like this, because this is Gerald's lockdown beard. His beard is normally significantly shorter, as you will see from other portraits. But this is Gerald's lockdown beard. Now, this was taken maybe a couple of months ago. It is now even worse. I think now you would nearly step on it. It's so long. But this is an example of using your friends and fellow photographers as a subject. So Gerald is a member of Catchlight Camera Club and a fantastic photographer and Photoshop user. But I use him as a male model for my studio workshops. This is Shasta again, the girl from Rwanda. And this was one of my most successful images. It's called Ebony Dove. So the moral of the story is never leave your studio windows open, because the doves will just fly in and land in the model's hands just as you're about to take a picture. I lie, of course, if the dove is photoshopped in, but Ebony Dove is actually I've got it up in my kitchen here as a 3-foot framed print. Ekaterina, again, the clues in the eyes. Catchlight is at 12 o'clock, so it's frontal lighting, flat lighting, and there's a white board there to fill in the shadows below the chin. And believe it or not, this is the same model on the same day. So I always love a profile. So a profile is whenever your model's face is turned side on towards the camera. And that one was called Ekaterina. I think it got me the certificate for the top portrait in the FIAP World Cup, maybe about 7 years ago. The inspiration for this one was Vermeer's painting, The Girl with the Pearl Earring. Obviously, I did not go for the same color scheme. If I had gone for the same color scheme, then I think it would have been very obvious that the girl with the pearl earring had been the inspiration for it. So I was using my own color scheme. Fanny and Freddie. So it's not Freddie Van Gilbergen, it's Freddie, my little schnauzer. So this is a straight shot. Fanny came into the studio, we brought Freddie, and she's got a little doggy treat in her fingers there. And Freddie was up on his back paws to get the treat. So that is the first 50. I'm going to race through the second 50. Hopefully these will all open in one fell swoop. 53 items. No, they haven't. I'll just give that a second to a quick preview. I'll try that again. I'll just count to 10 and let them get in the memory. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And there we go. So Freda again, very natural. I think this is very natural. She had very, very little makeup on, which I prefer. This same model looks like a princess. That beautiful soft window light again, so all natural light just at the edge of the window. She does have the most fabulous sort of blue irises. So the blue irises there are totally natural. Those are untouched. And that is at that same window in the floor above my studio. And again, look, I did this article in the FIAP News where I explained how to learn to read light. And I think this was one of the examples. So here you've got the lit side of the face. This is a window here, obviously. And then the shadow side of the face, beautiful soft shadows and the Rembrandt triangle. And again, Rembrandt lighting, there's the Rembrandt triangle. Gerald, so this is Gerald's latest beard. This is a COVID portrait, so it's COVID-19 portrait. Gerald, he lives with his mother who's in her 90s, she's 94 or 95, and he has to be very careful about not getting COVID, etc. So he came into my studio to help me put something up on the wall, and he had this mask with him, and I said, right, quick portrait. And so we took a socially distanced COVID portrait. And there he is with the military hat on. And there's Gerald's beard normally. So this is more or less the same way that the FIAP directors would have photographed him. That one is called Hooded Stare and has been very successful for me in competition. There's a video on my YouTube channel. I did put in a link in the chat to my YouTube channel. I'll put it in again at the end. And I have a video on my YouTube channel of me processing this image from the raw file to get to this finished, what I call sort of black and white. It's not 50 Shades of Grey, it's a proper black and white. The clue is in the name. An older one of Gerald, so he looks very young there, doesn't he? Holly flicking her hair, so it's 3, 2, 1, and she flicks her hair off to the side. And Holly again, this one is called The Grey Hat. And there's a funny story to go with this one because I won a gold medal in an English national competition. And I asked the makeup artist if she would like a copy of the print. And she said, oh yes, I'd love one. And I said, well, look, what about the lady who gave you the hat? would she like a copy of the print? And she said, oh no, definitely not. And I said, why definitely not? Is it because of the nudity? And she said, no, she said, it's because the hat's on back to front. So the only person who knows that the hat is on back to front is the unfortunate lady who made and supplied the hat, and she hates it for that reason. This lady is a singer from Dublin, and she had seen one of my pictures on social media and then contacted me and asked me would I take a picture for the front cover of her album. And I said, well, if you will come to my studio and be model for a few hours, I will certainly take your picture. So you will see the picture coming up where she had seen this pose with the fingers out, and she thought she would like to copy it for her music. One eye, so this is a popular approach, just allowing one part of a floppy hat to come down and cover one eye. Holly, local girl, I use her quite a lot in workshops. Holly again. You know, the way the hand is posed is very important in portrait photography. So if I put my hand in front of my face, it's as big as my face. So it's very easy to become a distraction, but just turning the hand sideways and curling the fingers always makes it less of a distraction. And actually, in this case, I think it adds to the photograph with that little raised chin and the nicely curled fingers. Holly again. Steve. So this is Steve, who also is a member of my camera club and also a very good photographer. And he actually works for Belfast Community Circus. So you'd normally find him juggling in the city centre on 6-foot stilts on bank holiday weekends, but he's a very characterful portrait. Local Indian girl, unfortunately she's now moved with her mother to live in Dubai, but again I used her for a couple of workshops. She just had a beautiful face and these fantastic dark eyes. Now it's very important for me with somebody with dark eyes like that to bring the eyes to life. So we have the catch light from the softbox and we have the catch light from a silver reflector. And then I've gone in and dodged the two catch lights to make her eyes come to life. For me, her eyes would be dead if they didn't have those catch lights. This is Jessica from Derry again. And she reminds me of Lisa Presley here. There's just something about her face that reminded me of the Elvis Presley family. Jake. So this guy is an English, he has been a barrister in England, he has been an actor, he has been a bodybuilder, but this is a very natural portrait of him. Normally he would have his muscles on show and the shirt off, etc., but that was just a very natural portrait of him. Johnny Fee. Johnny Fee is a local, he's a local character, but he does horse-drawn hearses for funerals for country people, but he's quite fond of the drink. So if he wants to have a drink, he has to get on a bus because he's barred from every pub within a 10-mile radius. This is all natural light, by the way, but even though it's natural light, I'm sure the eagle-eyed amongst you will have spotted the two catch lights in the eye. So the catch light on the left is from the open barn door. He's sitting on a chair in his barn, on his farmyard. And over on the right side, I've got a friend holding one of those circular silver pop-up reflectors just to bounce light back into the shadows. So that is the picture that the model from Dublin had seen and she wanted to replicate. And that, believe it or not, is a crop of that image. So that one was successful. That got me a gold medal in the quite famous salon. Gabriel O'Shaughnessy's in the audience. He was one of the judges, I think. It was the, oh, what do we call it? The one in...
Is that the Trauernberg Super Circuit?
Trauernberg.
Yeah, Trauernberg Super Circuit, yeah.
So that got me a gold medal in the Trauernberg, and it also was printed in the catalogue, which is quite an honour as well. But sometimes there's a picture within the picture. So this is actually from that same file. And this one is called one black one, one white one. Now, when I'm printing this, I print it on a textured fine art paper. And whenever I show it to people, I ask them to flip it over, because on the back, I have printed the exact same digital file on a premium luster paper. And by comparison, the luster paper is dead. Whenever they look at the one with fine art paper, they go, wow. When they look at the PF luster one on the back, they just go, well, yeah, that's okay. So it's amazing. They're printed from the exact same digital file. So paper choice is all important. That is Bink again. So we've really, gathered the material up around the chin quite tightly there to make it all about the face. See the way I'm getting very good at saying face now instead of face?
It's perfect.
Rafaela, I'll be entering this one in a local competition under the theme emotion. So for me, I think there's some emotion in this one. It's called Lost Love. So we'll see how it gets on. And well, it's not been selected yet to represent the club, but it could be. I just love the eye contact in this. This actually was, she's a fine art nude model, but I was so taken with her features with the shaved head that I actually spent more time doing portrait headshots with her than doing fine art nude. Even though I booked her for fine art nude work, I ended up doing mostly portraits. And by the way, this model introduced me to matte lipstick. So if we zoom in on the lipstick there, that is a matte lipstick. So you're not going to get reflections whenever models use matte lipstick rather than the glossy lipstick. So there's the glossy lipstick where you obviously get the shiny reflections back from the soft boxes. Mishka, this one did very well as a color picture, but even better as a mono. So this one got me the front cover of the PSA Who's Who in Photography catalogue in 2018. Mishka again, I think there's a sort of a feeling of like the widow with this one, using the black shawl and the dark makeup. This is a composite, so the background is the Victoria Centre underground car park in the shopping centre in Belfast. I'm sure some of the directors opened their credit cards in the Victoria Centre shopping centre. So that is the underground car park. And I just use it as a background. If you go down after midnight, it's empty of cars, and you can walk around and get nice backgrounds and then put the model in. Freda with the orange shawl. Fanny Muller with the tutu. Her tutu was just a normal tutu, so I've used Photoshop to turn it into sort of a petal shape, so it's called petal tutu. Oops, missed one. Just again, trying to do something different, little mesh around the eyes. Rochelle. This one is an example of studio portraiture with a very wide open aperture. Now, it's quite difficult to do with studio lights because studio lights are well, certainly mine are quite powerful. So I had to use a neutral density filter over the front of the lens to try and kill. This was taken with a medium format camera, probably at f4, possibly at f2.8, I can't remember. But look, the eye is perfectly sharp. You always want to focus on the eye that is closest to the camera. But this eye is just nicely, gently out of focus. But look at the fingers on the side of her cheek. They're already significantly out of focus. So that is a very shallow depth of field portrait. Lost. This guy is a local barber, so he's not a model, but he enjoys dressing up. So it's Peaky Blinders, if anybody knows what the Peaky Blinders are. This was the sort of inspiration for this shoot. It was quite funny because he came in and I heard him laughing from the changing room, and he said, "Ross, you're not going to believe this. I have forgotten my trousers." So he actually was wearing camouflage shorts that he came in wearing. So I just had to darken the camouflage shorts and take it 3/4. So I couldn't do any full length portraits because he forgot his bloody trousers. That's the same guy on the same day. So he loves dressing up. So now he looks like the nutty professor. And he's got the glasses on, he's pushed them down on the nose, and he's put on his old tweed jacket and the cravat, and you know, very much the gentleman, but he's still got all his bling on the fingers. Carla Monaco, she's an English professional model, absolutely fantastic. Ruta again. And that's the singer from Dublin. Again, just using her own coat. You know, this was the coat that she arrived to in the studio, and I said, look, that would make a super symmetrical type, you know, for a symmetrical portrait. The sort of two wings of the collar up, for me, gave a nice framing of the face. And again, the Rembrandt triangle, the lit side of the face, catch lights in the eyes to bring those dark, dark irises to life. Rim lighting again. So this was a slightly different lighting technique, a big softbox behind the model with a reflector below. So the reflector is at waist level behind her, and it catches the light from above and bounces up under her chin, under her nose, etc. But again, look at the lovely rim light right around the whole model. Some of you might have this one. If you entered the Bristol International in 2017, this one was on the front cover of the catalogue from the Bristol International. Julia Clements, she's a member of Cat's Leg Camera Club now, local makeup artist and stylist. She made this blue feather color, and then I went into Photoshop and picked up the color of the feathers and painted it in over the irises to make her eyes the same color as the feathers. Connor again, so this was possibly from that night in the studio with the FIAP directors, I think it was. Stephen, this one you might see over my head on my, what do you call it, camera on the computer. It's framed up on the wall with 5 or 6 medals that it has won in internationals. It won me a medal in the 150th Edinburgh International. And then that got me the job of judging it the following year. So this is Stephen, who's a member of my camera club. And it was actually taken with one little Canon speedlight off camera in my camera club whenever I was doing a demonstration on off-camera flash. And there was just something about it. This was the first press of the shutter. And it was the actual image that we ended up processing. But it won lots of medals and got actually 2 or 3 front pages of catalogues. Shasta, just using a simple headscarf. Stephen again, so there's Stephen again. This one I call Steptoe. So any of the British and Irish contingent will know who Steptoe is. And the boxer. This is quite a popular technique. If you take the photograph from slightly higher, shooting down, and the model lowers their chin, you catch the whites of the eye below the iris. So the whites of the eye, rather than having a white corner and a white corner, the whole whites of the eye are visible. The red hat, so there you are, sitting behind Paul Stanley there with the FIAP card. This was the one that FIAP used to advertise this presentation. I was in Denmark a couple of years ago doing a print presentation on the lighting workshop, and they brought along this guy for one of the male models. So obviously very Danish, very Viking looking, and he's got his ZZ Top t-shirt there. This model was coming in to model for a workshop, and before the makeup artist got anywhere near her, I said, no makeup, absolutely no makeup. I want to take an absolutely natural portrait. So there we go, Irish girl with her red hair and her freckles. It's a sin for me to cover all those freckles up with makeup. Zara. And last one is Zoe. Zoe is a professional model, lives in Amsterdam, married and living in Amsterdam, but she's Scottish. So those are all the images. I'm going to very quickly do a live edit of an image. here it is. Look, it's been very badly composed and from the camera, and that's not the photographer's fault, by the way. It was a mirrorless camera and he hadn't worked out how to turn off live view. So he was trying to frame it just looking at the model. So what I'm going to do is, this is in camera raw. I'm going to bring the exposure down a full stop. I'm going to bring highlights up 30. Now, rather than wanging the slider, by wanging the slider, I mean doing that. I like to be more precise. So I hold the shift key and every time I use the up arrow, I'm going up 10 at a time. Shadows, I'm going to go plus 12. Whites, I'm going to go maybe minus 10, something like that, maybe a wee bit more. I might bring the highlights down a little more. Oh, I went positive for the highlights, silly me. I'll just double click on the arrow, brings you back to 0. So it's minus 20, sorry, on the highlights. I'll go minus 22. I'm now going to open. Now, in fact, give me a second. I'm just going to go back to that. It will remember the settings. I'm going to change the color temperature. My lights are set to, or should match 5.2. I'm just changing that to 5.2. And it's being opened as a raw file in ProPhoto color space. Now, this is a brand new feature of Photoshop 2021. So if you've got the paid subscription, you can do this. When you click on the crop tool, you can click on content aware. So I've got content aware turned on. And if I now stretch out the canvas to how I want the composition to be, so I'm now putting the eyes on the top third, and I'm just leaving space for the model. I've just hit enter now, and content aware, because I had content aware ticked, it is going to fill in the background for me. So that is a brand new feature of Photoshop. And there's a little line here, a little dark line has been picked up. I'm going to remove that again using content aware. So I'm just going to go shift backspace, and that brings up the fill menu. Fill it with content aware, and it's gone. I'm now just going to use liquify. So Command or Control J for a duplicate layer. You can see over here, I've got 2 layers now. So filter and down to liquify. And whenever the model's arm is pressed against the body, you get that slight bulge. So I'm just going to use the right square bracket key to change the size of this brush. I'm going to pull that one out a little, push that one in. I'm going to push that one in a little bit. I'm going to make that smaller and just bring that shoulder crease down a little, or arm crease. I'm going to give a little bit more body to the hair. So I'm just going to pull the edge of her hair up a little, maybe down a little there, and click OK on that. The beauty of working on duplicate layers is I can now show you before and after, before and after. So I'm now going to flatten the image. I'm going to look for any blemishes. First of all, Command J for another duplicate layer. Command 1 zooms me into 100%. And I'll just go in a little further. And I'm now going to click on the spot healing brush. And I'm just going to get rid of that hair. And I'm going to get rid of that hair. Now, the spot healing brush works best with a hard edge. Up here, you can see hardness 100%. You can see the hard edge there, so I don't need to check that. Maybe get rid of that little hair there as well. That one's got a highlight on it. Any marks, blemishes on the face. So we're going to do these very quickly. So as a hard-edged spot brush will do a fantastic job on this. Command 0 makes the image fit the screen, and I can turn it off and on. We need to be zoomed in, obviously, to see those blemishes disappear. I'll just deal with another one There. So before, after. Now again, I'm going to show you another brand new feature of Photoshop 2021. Command J for duplicate layer, filter, and down to this thing called neural filters. Now this is an absolutely amazing improvement to Photoshop. Skin smoothing, if I turn that on, you've got blur and you've got smoothness. Blur is basically texture on the skin. So I'm going to say I want a wee bit more texture. So I'm going to bring that down to maybe 20. Smoothness, I'll maybe just move it up a little, maybe to 6. And I'm just going to click OK. And it has given me a mask of the face on a new layer. I can turn it off and on. Look what that has done. Off and on. Look at the improvement. Now we've lost a little contrast in the nostril there. So I'm just going to apply a white mask and paint with a black brush to just bring back a little bit of the contrast on the nostrils there. But before, after, before, after. Less is more, so I'm going to reduce the opacity of this layer by going V7. That makes the opacity 70%, and I'm now going to flatten image. One thing that you always want to make sure is that the likes of this arm is not brighter than the face, and at the moment this is the brightest part of the image. So I'm going to show you a way to reduce that. So Command J, Image, Adjustments, Curves. And there's a little hand tool here. If I click on the hand tool and just click on the bright part of her skin and drag the mouse down, it automatically brings the curve there. And I'll now put a black mask over that. B for brush. I'm going to paint at 30% opacity. So rather than going up there and wanging the slider, I'm just going to hit 3 on the keyboard and automatically I've got 30% in there. With a soft edged brush, I'm just going to paint in that darkened over the highlights where I want them to be slightly darker. Soft edged brush at 30%. Some places being brushed in more than others. And I'll maybe just do that on the forehead a little. I'll go to 2 for 20% on the forehead. And I'll just give the forehead a slight darkening. Command 0, make the image fit the screen, and we can go before, after, before, after. I've gone too far, but I reduce that with the opacity. So V for Victor and 6 for 60%. And I think that's probably good enough. I'll just flatten image now. Let's improve the eyes. I'm just going to add another little catch light in the iris. So I'm going to do a curves adjustment layer. I'm not going to touch the curve. I'm just going to put it into screen blend mode. And I'm going to invert the mask by going Command I. B for brush, 7 for 70% with a soft edge brush. And I'm just going to paint in added catch lights in her eye. Now those are too much, obviously. I'll just go over the height of the catch light as well. And I'm now going to go V3 for 30%. Note that we've lost them, 6 for 60%. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I'll actually just, I'm just going to select those areas. I don't want to blur the catch light. I'm just going to blur. So I'm on the mask, I'm blurring the mask, filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and I'll probably just put in like 4 pixels on that. There's the preview. Command D to deselect, and I can turn off and on, off and on. Happy with that for the Latin image. Command 0 to make it fit the screen. Another new technique I've learned, black and white adjustment layer. And I'm just going to bring it down to add contrast to her skin. And I'm going to put that into soft light blend mode. and I'm going to invert the mask. B for brush, 2 for 20% opacity. In fact, no, we'll go not for 100% opacity and show you what we're doing here. It'll be more obvious. B for brush, not for 100% opacity. Yeah, I hit something wrong there. And this will look mad initially, but it's to add contrast to her face. So that's at 100%. If I go V2 for 20%, it's like a dodging and burning, a quick man's, lazy man's dodging and burning. I might even go 3 for 30%. Happy with it, and flatten image. A vignette. I just draw out a marquee. I go select inverse. I then feather that, typically by 400 pixels. This is quite a large file, so we'll go 450 pixels. Command J to put that on a new layer, and Command L for levels. And rather than wanging the slider, I will just go Shift Not, and I've changed 1.0 to 0.75. That is a 25% darkening. And I'm just going to reduce that to 70%, V7, 70%, flatten image. And the last thing I'm going to do is bring in a texture. Let me see. Command A to select all, Command C to copy, Shift Command V to paste that in the middle, Command T to transform, hold the Option key and drag it out. And I'm just going to position it that way. It's a bit dark on one side. And I'm going to blur that, filter, blur. This is just wallpaper. I'll blur it by 12. I'll maybe blur it a wee bit more, 24. Yeah. And I'm going to change the blend mode to soft light. Now, this is a very clever technique. If you just watch what I'm going to do here, I'm going to turn off the top layer, click on the bottom layer, and in Photoshop now, quick selection tool, and up here, select subject. And I'm going to go into select and mask. And there's a brand new feature again now called refine hair. I'm just going to click on it. And I'm not going to try and be clever and do anything more. I'm just going to say OK. And I'm now going to turn on the top layer and click on the mask. Now the mask will need to be inverted. So Command I inverts the mask. You can see a mask by going Option click and B for brush. I'm just on the edges of her hair going to paint at 20% opacity to have a better blend between her hair and you can see it's a bit gray there. I'm actually painting in over the mask so to allow some of the texture. Whoops. I'm going to clear that guide, clear guide. So I'm actually allowing some of the texture to come in over her hair. And I'm now going to vignette the wallpaper background, same way as I did before. Select inverse, select modify feather, Command J, Command L, change the 1.0 to 0.75, reduce the opacity V5 for 50%, flatten image, and the very final 2 steps. It's a big file. I'm just going to make it slightly smaller just for the purpose in case my computer crashes. Command J, filter, Nik software, Color FX Pro, and darken, light, and center. And this is where you draw attention to the part of the photograph that you want the viewer's eye to be drawn to. Less is more, so I'm just going to reduce the opacity of that to 60%, maybe 60, 70, go 33%, yeah. And then sharpening, we're nearly done, folks. Command J, filter, next software, output sharpener. And if you remember these settings, inkjet, auto, luster, 2400 by 2400. Don't change anything else. And for your typical digital SLR file, that will give you absolutely perfect sharpening on a raw file. So inkjet, auto, luster, 2400 by 2400. Click OK. Command 1 to zoom in at 100%. And before, after, beautifully sharp image, ready for print, flatten image. Command 0, make it hit the screen, and we are done. And if I now go into the history section and take a snapshot of where we are, we have gone from that to that.
Ross, thank you very, very much. That was absolutely amazing. I learned loads there from that.